So I want to welcome everyone to the Yuba County Sheriff's Department Plumas Lake Virtual Town Hall. A special thanks to Yuba County Sheriff Wendell Anderson, Under Sheriff Nick Morozinski, Lieutenant Joe Million, and crime analyst Leslie Carbaugh for participating in the meeting this evening. I also want to thank Clint Curry, the Yuba County District Attorney, for joining us. Everyone except the presenters is muted, and you will not be able to unmute yourself. If you're participating via Zoom, you can use the chat box for questions. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you may comment on the live stream. I will attempt to monitor both and read questions for those from the Sheriff's Department. The meeting is being live streamed to Facebook, and it will be available to view by those who miss it. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Sheriff Anderson. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you everyone out there for being here. And first of all, I just want to give you an update on the status of our department, our staffing levels, and some things that we have going on. Now, it's no secret we've had budget issues in Yuba County for the past several years, and we've never quite recovered. Although I have to say our board of supervisors, including Supervisor Bradford, have been very supportive of us, and we currently have one vacancy, and we're looking to fill that in our operations division. And we're very, very excited to announce that we just recently received authorization for 2 new allocated positions. And those allocated positions are going to be, they're going to have a focused effort on several issues within the county, one being homelessness, blight issues that we have throughout the county, and just community-oriented policing. They're not going to be responding to calls for service on a daily basis. They're going to be a dedicated resource that we have specifically for those problem areas within the county. It's a 2-year pilot program that we're starting, and I'm very excited about this, as I know our board is, and just seeing that what we can do with a focused effort on those problems, the blight issues, the homeless encampments and things like that. So we're going to be working closely. They're actually going to be assigned to code enforcement. They're going to work side by side with code enforcement, which gives code enforcement, a little more authority, having the powers of the penal code there with them to issue citations, enforce penal code violations and whatnot. So that's something that we are recruiting for now amongst our in-house folks. We've got some really good applicants, and I just can't tell you how excited I am to get that going. Our jail division is doing very well. We do have some issues with exposures to COVID that we're dealing with here in our department and also in the correctional institution. None of our inmates are detainees. There's been no outbreaks in our jail. The staff there has done a tremendous job controlling that, mitigating any sort of outbreak inside our jail. The precautions that we put in place very, very early on have been going on for since March, and I commend our corrections staff for what they're doing. Gary was kind enough to put some crime stats on the board, so I'm not going to go over all the stats, but I hope that you do, and I value answering any and all of your questions that you may have. We have staff here. I have Lieutenant Million, who's actually effective January 1st, he's going to be our new operations commander. He's being promoted to captain, and Under Sheriff Morozinski here. So we're here to answer your questions. We actually had planned on having one of our CSOs here to present some neighborhood watch information to you folks, but she wasn't able to make it due to a last minute emergency. We have some very robust programs in Plumas Lake. You guys are very involved with Neighborhood Watch. But if you do have an area out there that you would like to start a new group, contact the Sheriff's Department. Contact CSO Rosa Leone. She is our coordinator for Neighborhood Watch. And she'll get you going. She'll tell you what you need to do. But I know that you guys are already very involved in the Neighborhood Watch activity, and we truly do appreciate that. And I think I've just about talked about everything that I want to talk about other than answering your questions. And I think reserving as much time as possible for that, for answering what concerns that you have the best that I can.
So I'm sure people have some questions. So if you can ask them in the chat window, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can type them as a comment. Um, oh, here we
So,
go. Here's one, Sheriff.
okay.
Is there anything that the Yuba County Sheriff's Department can do about the Plumas Lake truck stop? So that is the area kind of near the Walgreens where we have all the trucks parking.
Yeah.
And I have some updates on that as well, but I guess I could let you go and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, so I know that we've been in contact with the owner there, and from what I understand, that area is going to be blocked to the parking. So that's private property in there, and yeah, absolutely. If we get a call of unwanted folks in there from the property owner, we'll be able to ask them to leave or take enforcement measures. But I know Gary has been working with the owner of that property to remedy that problem. And from what I understand, that's coming in the very, very near future. Gary, if you want to elaborate on
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. That is correct. You know, I know, as you mentioned, one of the biggest challenges with enforcement there is that that is private property, and it's not necessarily posted as no trespassing, so it makes it a little more difficult to enforce things there, unless the property owner is reaching out to you. The county has been working with the property owner and access to that property. I don't have a specific timeline, but in the near future will be blocked off. So that hopefully will prevent trucks from parking there. It will prevent the other vehicles from parking there that appear might be camping there. And so hopefully that'll take care of the problem. Looks like we have some other questions here. What is being done about the frequent vehicle thefts?
well, so I wish we had CHP here. You know, we have been working in conjunction with CHP on putting together, you know, some joint efforts for enforcement, and that includes, you know, CHP has some resources that we don't have locally. Some of the vehicles outfitted um, with LPRs. We've actually recently acquired some low jack devices, which are very beneficial. I think we recovered 2 stolen vehicles with low jack devices over the past weekend. We're looking at getting more. The vehicle theft problem is it's I'll be honest with you, it has exploded across the state in this year. It's a concern for all of us, obviously. And you know, we just plan on working with CHP maybe to do some stings or something to try to thwart some of these steps.
Okay, great. I don't see any other specific questions yet, other than someone is asking about if Sutter County is going to hold something similar to this. So if you get a chance, Sheriff, you might mention it to Sheriff Barnes that there might be an interest in something similar on the other side of the river.
No, absolutely, and I think this is new to all of us, right? We're in unprecedented times right now, and you know, the Sheriff's Department did a series of town hall meetings last year, and it hoped to do them on a more regular basis. So, but this is all we can do for now. But I will talk to Sheriff Barnes. I don't know what their plans, and I can't speak for him.
Okay.
If you have more questions, or I can talk about something else that I think that I've been receiving questions about.
I do have 2 more questions, and then that have come in, and then you can take that. Oh, actually, I guess 3 questions. So the first one is, and I know you've addressed this in a video, but I've heard that there is a curfew. Is that true? I assume they're talking about Governor Newsom's curfew, and not just the general curfew that I think exists in Yuba County related to young people.
Yeah, well, that was a statewide order. I think it was between the hours of 10 and 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. Obviously, you know, with what we're talking about, looking at crime stats, the resources from the Sheriff's Department, I feel are better utilized, you know, trying to deter this crime and chasing the criminals. I mean, we're talking about releasing people from prison and potentially taking somebody to jail for violating the curfew. I'm not willing to do that or use the resources of this department to do that. So there is an order in effect from the state and also at the local level, but the resources of this sheriff's department will not be utilized to enforce it.
Okay, there's also a question here more related to animal control, but it's asking, what about dogs that are barking all day and night?
Yeah, I wish we had brought Heather Knoll in from ACS, but yeah, we actually have a protocol for that, and you call ACS. We used to have 3 complainants, but now I believe it's only 1 complainant. Gary, that was addressed in the ordinance, I believe. But yeah, if you have a dog that's barking day or night, you can call ACS. You can call the sheriff's department. What the sheriff's department may respond is that they will log your address for contact with ACS. Then an animal care services officer will contact you. But with a caveat, I will tell you right now that ACS is, they're working at bare bones right now. They have some individuals who had exposures. So full services are not being offered at this time. But if you call, someone will contact you. And yeah, there is something that can be done. You will have to sign a complaint if you want to file a complaint. But ACS does respond to those, and there is something that can be done. That the owner can be held responsible.
Okay. Here's a question. What are the areas of risk or concern from the sheriff's department that are most impactful to Plumas Lake residents, and how can we help?
Well, Gary, I'm not sure I quite understand. So the areas could you repeat the question?
What are the areas of risk/concern from the sheriff's department that are most impactful to Plumas Lake residents, and how can we help? So I think maybe,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. So, I mean, it's no secret. Christmas time's coming, and we see an uptick in thefts during this time, especially, the package thefts. And I would say that the folks in Plumas Lake, you guys do a pretty good job of notifying us and keeping each other aware of suspicious vehicles, suspicious people in the area. And if you see that, don't hesitate to call and report that. As much information as you can get on the individual or individuals that you see or the vehicle, document that. Don't put yourself in danger, obviously, but give us a call. I'll be honest with you, Plumas Lake, you guys do a great job out there of notifying each other, I know, but also notifying the sheriff's department. And I would ask that if you do see something, call us. I see a lot of Facebook posts with suspicious activity, and that's great. Notify your neighbors, notify your neighborhood watch group, but call us first and then do the post and let us respond. And I know sometimes it can be a little bit of a response time out there, but we try to have somebody down there as often as we can. And you never know, they might be right around the corner. So make that call, make us aware of what's going on, and we'll respond as quickly as we can.
Okay. I'm definitely getting a lot of questions now, so that's good. Here's one. We recognize we live in a dark community as far as streetlights. What can be done to reduce crime with that as an issue? It seems all the doorbell cameras seem to be making a difference. What can we do as a community to help with that? So it's kind of a little bit of follow-up, I guess, to the previous question. Since the community is so dark, what can the community do to help reduce crime?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate of motion lights on your property. Motion lights, the Ring cameras are great. I have them on my house as well. And just notifying us if you have those problems. Don't leave your garage doors open, lock your cars. Anytime that you have valuables inside your car, take them out, right? So if somebody comes by, and a lot of the thefts we see are crimes of opportunity, and somebody comes and they're looking at a car window and they see a computer or a purse or a wallet, they're more likely, to get into that car, break into it, to steal that item. So secure your garages, your cars. Motion lights are great. There's a lot of crime prevention tactics that we can do with landscaping. If you have bushes around your front door, around windows, take care, trim those down, make your house as visible as possible for deputies that may be driving by. and as light as possible with motion lights or whatever you can. It's unfortunate that with the street light situation there, obviously that was before any of our time, the planning, during the planning phase. And, I don't know what the answer is to the street lights. I suppose they can be retrofitted, but, the cost and the impact on that would probably be pretty high. But those things that I mentioned earlier, just calling us and if you see suspicious activity going on, that helps a lot.
Okay. Another question. This person understands, I think, that CHP is responsible for traffic enforcement in Plumas Lake, but they're asking if the sheriff's department can help in any way with that. I know we have a big issue here of people running stop signs. I'm sure that's not just in Plumas Lake, but it's definitely an issue here.
Yeah, absolutely. So CHP does have the primary enforcement of the roadways, but the sheriff's department also has the ability to issue citations for vehicle code violations, and we do pretty regularly. It's just a matter of getting those dedicated resources out there. Yeah, we can do that, and it's a matter of priorities. We are obviously, we want our communities to be as safe as possible. But on the other end, we're at the mercy of the phone calls in the 911 system. As often as we can get somebody out there to do enforcement, but be careful what you ask for, right? Because make sure you're stopping at all the stop signs, because when we have, enforcement in those areas, oftentimes everybody gets a ticket. So, but yeah, there are some things that we can do. I wish we could dedicate somebody out there 24/7 for traffic enforcement alone. But we just don't have the staffing at this time. We're heading in that direction. But we also, I think if you have those speeders and you have those repeat offenders, call CHP, call them, tell them, and urge them to come out. And you can do the same and ask the same of us.
That's great. That's what I always encourage people to do is call CHP, ask them to come out. If you notice, there tends to be a pattern of a certain time that more people, are violating those kind of things. Let them know, so that's the time they can target. A little bit related to resourcing, one of the questions I get from time to time is, how come there's not a stub station in Plumas Lake, and we need some deputies down here. So someone asks, how often is patrolling happening? It's kind of related to that. Maybe you could speak about the last year or so and the change that's happened kind of in the Plumas Lake area related to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the past year, what we've done is we've created a new beat. We have beats within the county, and there are geographical boundaries that we use. And with the goal, obviously, it would be nice to have a deputy assigned to every beat, and that's our goal, is to have a deputy assigned to the Plumas Lake beat. That beat was created about a year ago, and it encompasses all of Plumas Lake and over to 40 Mile Road. And we do, when we have staffing, we assign someone to the Plumas Lake beat. The problem is we don't always have enough staffing to cover every beat. So we have a north, a south, and a central beat, and now a Plumas beat. So we essentially have 5 beats, the other one being up in the foothills. So it's 644 square miles that we have to cover. And I would love to have a deputy in Plumas Lake beat full time. And by the way, we do have, I don't know if I want to call it a substation, but at Linda Fire Station, the deputies have an area. And I know they frequently use it because we have a computer there, we have a printer there, and services so they can download their reports. So they do have an office there. We're just unable to staff it all the time. I know that doesn't answer the question completely, but as staffing levels permit, we do assign our deputies to the Plumas Lake beat.
Okay. Another animal services related question. What happens when a dog fatally mauls another dog? There have been several fatal maulings in Plumas Lake.
So that dog could be considered a vicious animal, depending on the circumstances. And and a lot of times that's the case, and the ACS would respond and take possession of that dog, and there would be some court proceedings after that to determine whether that dog should be considered vicious or not. So yeah, ACS would handle that, and that, I don't know the specific circumstance you're referring to. I know we have had some recently, and I will tell you that our ACS, our animal care services, they're doing an outstanding job. And the manager we hired out there about a year ago, she's turned our ACS around and is really, really headed in a very good direction. And her name is Heather Knoll. And for these questions, if you have a specific problem, I would encourage you to call ACS or call the Sheriff's Department, and she will be on it, and she will respond accordingly and take the appropriate actions.
Okay, great, thank you. Here's our question related to the Country Club Road closure to the Grays Beach area and enforcement of that. It says, can you please explain how you may handle the situation if you find hunters or fishermen in the area that you plan on having a nighttime closure on December 15th?
If we find hunters, you mean in there after hours?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, people that are in that area after hours.
So yeah, what we would, there actually is going to be signage, and I guess for all intents and purposes, if they're down there hunting at night and they're locked in, if they're staying all night down there, we wouldn't respond at all. But there's going to be a signage. If they need to be let out, we can come and open the gate and let them out. I don't know if that was the question, what it was referring to, but I don't think there's a prohibition against being down there at night, but you might be locked in an inconvenience when you're coming out. But we will come and open the gate and let you out. That's the understanding I have with Trillia, who actually maintains that property.
Okay. Here's a comment from someone. From my perspective, it seems like the auto theft problem appears to be a ring by nature. Have you guys noticed the thefts staging from Lynx Way? Since there is no direct line of sight from houses, I believe the thieves are potentially staging, looking there while their teams commit the activities. So that's related to probably the Wheeler Ranch area in particular. But if I guess, and I know investigations, you can only share some things, but anyway, if you have any comments on that.
Well, sorry, I don't have any specific knowledge about any vehicle theft rings at this point in time. We do work closely with CHP, but it sounds like you may have some specific information, and if you do, give us a call and share it. If that is the case, we can certainly try to make a connection with the ring or whomever maybe conspiring to do this. I mean, we see a lot of we have certainly our repeat offenders for stolen vehicles, but it's become an epidemic. And, the stats show, and I know we don't have this year's stats on here, but I think it's a problem that's arising from a lot of things: poor legislation, lack of accountability for those crimes. And I honestly, I don't have the answer for it. I don't know, but I will tell you, we will follow every lead that we can get. So if you have information, please give it to us. Give us a call.
Thanks. So here's a question. You touched a little bit on this earlier, but I know more people have joined since then. It says the homeless situation in the county is not the greatest. Now that Sutter cleared out the encampment by the airport on 2nd Street, it seems that Star Bend and the areas surrounding now have an increased presence. With the curfew for those areas by the river, will enforcement be done to move those new encampments out of our area?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually begun a pretty focused enforcement in the River Bottoms area. We've been starting on Simpson Lane area behind the racetrack down there around the Shad Pad, and we're going to continue across the county. We're going to continue to put pressure on those individuals who are violating our ordinance and creating light issues within our county. We've actually done quite a good job here the last couple of months with getting a tremendous amount of trash cleaned up, a lot of cars removed. And if you weren't on before, we have a couple of new positions that we're preparing to fill that are going to be focused on types of things, focused on homeless encampments and blight issues and problems in the community. They're not going to be responding to calls for service. They're going to be direct enforcement on those areas. And, you know, I don't know where, you know, where the biggest problem is, because it's spread out throughout the county. It's going to take us a while to clean it up. But we've done a lot in the last couple of months. We're going to continue. We have 2 years with a pilot program that we're going to start off with 2 deputies and some code enforcement officers. And yeah, we're going to keep a lot of pressure on those types of situations and those folks that, you know, are not taking advantage of the help that's being offered to them.
That's great. I know a lot of people in the community, not just here in Plumas Lake, but countywide, have you know, that's a big concern for them. So I think everyone will be very excited to start to see some more movement on that. This individual said, "Thank you all for this opportunity. Are there areas related to the parks that parents of young children should be aware of?" And I'm not sure I fully understand the question. So if you don't either, Sheriff, then maybe that person can type some clarification.
Yeah, I know. I mean, nothing jumps out at me specifically there when I hear parks. But yeah, if you want to clarify the question, I'd be happy to answer.
Nope.
I don't have any concerns about, you know, I just can't speak further on that.
Oh, here we go. Drug items or so forth. So really some parks that maybe have, I guess, maybe have drug paraphernalia or criminal activity that, you know, parents with young kids should stay away from.
Well, without having the statistics in front of me, none of them really jump out at me. I mean, obviously we have public parks in some of our areas within the county. You know, there's a couple of parks in Linda where we have a high amount of drug activity. In Plumas Lake, nothing that I can speak to that I have stats for. I don't know if that answers your question. So I really can't. I mean, if it's, I would just say, you know, if you have a park in your neighborhood, be familiar with it and use your best judgment. If you see, you know, unsavory characters in the park that you don't feel comfortable going around, don't go around them. If you see illicit or illegal activity going on in a park, call the sheriff's department and we will respond.
Okay.
Gary.
Yeah.
Just to jump in, living in Plumas Lake, my boys are 9 and 12, and I've got no problem with them getting on their bikes and going all over to the parks. You know, I look for this kind of stuff when I'm out, and I haven't seen it yet in the parks here in Plumas Lake. So like the sheriff said, I just really encourage anyone, you know, if you come across a syringe, if you come across anything like that, report it to the sheriff's department right away, because we want to nip that in the bud if it starts. We're doing great so far.
Great. Thank you, Clint. There's another question here related to, do you know if the sheriff's department is using community policing?
Absolutely. That's the goal. So we're not using community policing as much as we would like to, and that's due to staffing levels and priority calls. The 2 new positions that we have coming forward are going to be geared towards community policing. I believe community policing works. I believe it's the correct way to police, but I believe you have to have, you know, the resources to be able to do that. And that's how I, you know, was raised, so to speak, in law enforcement, was community policing. And the broken window theory, I believe in that. But, you know, it takes a lot of resources. We're working that way. We're trying to get that, you know, back to a more community-oriented policing. We would love to be able to do that on a regular basis, but it's just right now our guys and gals are going literally from call to call to call, on a regular basis, so it doesn't leave a lot of time for it. But that's our goal, and we're headed in a good direction. We have support from the board of supervisors, from our county administrator, and it's the philosophy that we believe in. We just have to be able to dedicate resources to do it.
Okay, great. Kind of following up on something you said earlier, as well as kind of limited resources, kind of ties into this question. If the state intensifies the stay-at-home and curfew restrictions, will you continue your non-enforcement stance?
I absolutely will. I believe not only is it a drain on resources, I believe it's a constitutional issue. And I believe that, once we start watching our constitutional rights being eroded, before we know it, they're going to be gone, and we need to defend our constitutional rights. And it's imperative that we do that, because once we start losing one or making a determination that one is more important than the other, then we lose grip with all of them. So now, regardless of what the state does, the sheriff's department will remain focused on crime and protecting the community from criminals. And I don't believe that not wearing a mask or being out between 10 and 6 is a crime.
Thank you, Sheriff. Next question. Some of us in Plumas Lake are interested in starting a nightly patrol to observe and report and deter crime. Is this something we can work on with the sheriff's department to make it effective and lawful?
Well, I think, yeah, as long as you're observing and reporting, it is lawful. But, the only thing that I would warn you is you put yourself in a bad situation. And the last thing I would want to see is somebody get hurt trying to do that. Now, we can't tell you you can't do that. Observe and report, call us. We would be happy to come out and talk to you about some pointers, some things that we might be able to do. I don't know. I don't know that you guys have, and you can speak better than me, Gary and Clay. You live out there. Joe lives out there. I don't know if we're to the point where we need neighborhood patrols. The calls for service don't warrant that, but I don't know. Are we not getting the calls when those suspicious people are out there? I don't know. I just don't want to see a community rocked by something like that, bad situation with bad people, people trying to do the right thing and just encounter the wrong individual at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think it's predominantly driven by all the thefts we have going on, in particular the vehicle thefts that have really spiked recently, and the community concerned about that, and obviously understanding that the sheriff's department can't be everywhere at once, right? And so is there anything the community can do to help as far as keeping an eye out?
Well, I think, yeah, just reporting the suspicious activity. If you see a car that's driving around the block, if you see individuals that appear to be loitering or peeping or any of that, call us. Call us every time you see it. And license plate numbers, descriptions, and we make a few good arrests down there for vehicle thefts, and it gets publicized. Maybe those thieves move on to another community next time they want to victimize someone.
Okay, and the next one is, let's see here. In regards to community support to helping solve these crimes, theft, car break-ins, etc., has the sheriff's department explored the idea of setting up a voluntary database of homeowner-owned security cameras to aid in the investigations? And it says Yuba City Police Department has a program like that. And then you have a database of everyone who has one, and they can contact them. I know at one point there was some talk about that. I think some surveys that went out. I'm not sure what the status of that is. So maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, so we actually looked into doing that about a year or so ago. Leslie's on, she might be able to speak. I don't know that we got such a good response from people that wanted to register their cameras with us. Yeah, absolutely. We're willing to do that. We began the initiation process of that, but I don't think it was well received. Leslie, if you can speak further on that.
Yeah, excuse me. Throughout the jurisdiction, it was less favorable than the Plumas Lake region. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I got a more positive response from communities like Plumas Lake and Edgewater, but some of the other regions in the county were a lot more skeptical of the program. I think with a little more community education, we can help ease some of those concerns. I think there was a misunderstanding that we were going to be accessing their security video footage online, or that we'd have some sort of remote in capability, and that would not be the case at all. It would simply just be essentially a log of locations of private security cameras where, for instance, if we have a burglary on River Oaks in Edgewater, we can pull up that location and see what routes of in and out could have gotten to that location and how many houses along that route may have video. It saves our field personnel the work of going door to door, which we do anyway, to see if there's any neighborhood cameras that may have captured the incident. We are prepared to do that, and we would like to pursue that. We were working with our county IT department to try to set that up electronically using some of our GIS software and survey capabilities, so that it can be, as opposed to just adding more data entry work. When folks signed up with their security, it would automatically populate the database, as opposed to having someone have to enter that information manually. So that's kind of where it got hung up, is on the IT side of things, just and the scope of work involved in getting that going. We have a few things on the IT side at the county that we're in transition server-wise. And so it's still on the table. It's something I would love to do. And I think, again, with a little more community education about what exactly that would entail, it would help ease the minds of those that were skeptical about the program. And of course, it would be completely voluntary.
Yeah,
Great.
and the great value to us, as Leslie said, I mean, that when we are investigating a crime, that's the first thing we do, is a door-to-door canvas to see who has surveillance. So if we had a list, or that's something we might look into with Zone Haven as well. We're in the process now of working with a software company called Zone Haven for early warning notifications, various things. We're really excited about it. So that may be an avenue that we could pursue with them. And as Leslie said, on a voluntary basis. I like the idea. I've always liked the idea, and we can certainly look into it further and try to get that program up and running.
Great, thank you. Some feedback on your comment related to enforcement of the curfew and things like that. Very positive response to that. They were very happy with what you had to say. Also, just someone who's on Facebook, so I know you're not able to see it on the chat here, but they wanted to thank you and your team for your availability tonight. The accessibility provides them with a higher level of comfort about policing. And so just a thank you for your time and for being here to answer questions. And so some other questions we have. This probably just speaks to Plumas Lake crime in general. It's a pretty generic question, but has there been anything bad going on in Plumas Lake? So, and I do have, I don't know if you can see it, the counts for Plumas Lake and the county as far as the various crime items up on the screen. I don't know if there's anything you want to highlight from that or not with respect to that question.
Well, I'll just say, anytime anyone is victimized, it's bad, right? And we have other crimes that we keep. We have robbery, burglaries. So I mean, those are all bad crimes in my opinion. Have we had any violent crimes? Fortunately, no. We have had some shots fired calls. We've had some shootings out there that we've investigated, and I haven't let these guys talk at all, so they should probably speak a little bit. But nothing jumps out at me as being what I would classify as heinous But, like I said, any crime is bad. Burglary to your house is bad, to your car. Anytime anyone is victimized and their personal space is invaded, that's bad. So, did you have anything to add? I know we've had a few shots fired calls. And
Yeah,
whatnot.
so there has been a few shots fired calls that have been very isolated, and it's been groups that have been, it hasn't been like just random driver shooting. It's been get together with somebody having a disagreement and somebody firing a shot in the air or something. Nothing like that we would see in the northern part of our county and other areas where we have gang activity, which is pretty predominant. One thing I would say is that, like the sheriff expressed earlier, is that we are getting into the Christmas and the holiday season. So we usually see an uptick in thefts this time of year, especially when everybody calls a porch pirate, where everybody's getting everything dropped off on Amazon. Just be very cautious about leaving things out there. I mean, I live in Plumas Lake. I know all my neighbors. Every we get very comfortable. I can tell you there's probably at least 30 residents or houses that are occupied by law enforcement officers alone in Plumas Lake. So, I mean, you don't have 30 cops living in Plumas Lake if it's not a comfortable place to live. And sometimes we get complacent. Just be very diligent of that. Like the sheriff said, people use the crime as crime of opportunity. Just be careful about leaving packages on your porch too long or anything like that. The other thing is, like, share with us the information. Cannot express it enough. I've seen a couple times last year it happened. People were stealing packages. People didn't actually call us right away. We were monitoring the feeds from the Ring cameras or the Plumas Lake chatter. Somebody posted a picture a couple different times of people stealing stuff. We instantly saw it, put it out before the report even came in. We knew who they were, identified and found them. So just the community, that's part of community policing, and that's what we depend on. It's a partnership with you. And we have a very good partnership with Plumas Lake. People understand that, want to be safe, and we just need to continue that. I think that we can't stress that.
Okay, great. And I think I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one, but what are the resources you need to make community policing work more successfully? And I believe the answer is going to be more positions in the sheriff's department, so more resources. And you can elaborate on that if there's other things you want to share, but I would guess that's probably it.
Yeah, so, I mean, community policing, it takes a little more time. It takes that deputy being able to spend a little bit more time on a call, maybe contacting business owners, contacting residents out there. It's staffing. Back, we still haven't recovered from our staffing levels. Back in 2006 and 2008, we had 7 more deputies than we have on today. And that was before Plumas Lake really expanded. And but we're heading in a good direction. We've got 2 new positions this year. We got 4 last year. The board has been very supportive of us. We're making great strides. And I think we're going to see a time when you're going to see a familiar faces in Plumas Lake driving around. It's going to be that beat cop who and hopefully everybody has time to communicate with if they want to. And I think we're heading in that direction, and the support that we get from our community is outstanding. And as we see the expansion of the growth that I feel is probably going to happen down in Plumas Lake or in the south part of the county, then we're going to see other sources of revenue come to our county. And we'll be able to achieve the goal of community-oriented policing. But, as it stands right now, it's just going to require us to have more staffing. And that's what it boils down to, where our guys and gals are running from call to call.
Okay, thank you. How do we get the community involved in the STAR program is the next question.
Yeah, we would love to have you involved in our STARS program. So you can go on to our website and you look, there will be a link for our STARS program, and there's an application process that you do have to go through. We do have to do limited background because our STARS volunteers have access to some sensitive data, but they provide a tremendous resource to us. So go onto that website and reach out to CSO Rosa Leone, who's also in charge of our STARS program, and she'll get you an application and get you started in the process.
Okay. Any present or planned training in implicit bias with staff, dispatch, and officers?
Yeah, absolutely. We have that next week. So it's a mandated training that we have to do. And that's been one of our goals over the last 2 years since I took office. It was to get us up to date on our training. And I'm excited to say that if we're going to hit our goal this year of being in compliance with posts, which is no small feat. Our staff here has done a tremendous job, and implicit bias and racial profiling is one of those trainings that everyone is mandated to have. So absolutely, we will have that training. And I believe it's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. But each individual or groups of deputies will attend trainings, and we actually have, is it Brant, one of our lines? Yeah, so our lines, I'm sorry, so we just completed the implicit bias training just in the past couple of weeks. So, sorry, I was thinking it was coming up, but we've already had it.
Okay, great. Can anything be done about illegal fireworks?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have illegal fireworks that you're seeing, call the sheriff's department. There is a penal code section and a health and safety code section. I believe, Clint, you may know better than I, but yeah, it's a prosecutable offense. It's actually a misdemeanor to possess certain fireworks. And if you have those, it can be difficult to find the source of those fireworks sometimes. But if you see that, call the sheriff's department and let us know, and we'll respond.
Okay. A question here. A few months ago, you notified the community about, it moved on me when I was reading it. A few months ago, you notified the community about a Chronicle reporter asked for a list of CCW holders for the county. Is there any update about this request and what the purpose was actually for?
Yeah, I don't know what the purpose was for. We never actually got that request. I think you may be confusing me with Sutter County Sheriff, who actually received that request. And I think I put something out saying that we were anticipating receiving it because counties up and down the state were receiving that similar request from, it was actually a news syndicate, I believe, out of the Bay Area. And it was going on across the nation. And I don't know what the intention was of their request, but I will not fulfill that request unless I'm legally ordered to do so. But keep in mind that at some point, after litigation, I believe that we're going to be required to release certain information. We'll redact as much information as we can, but I believe that the legislators have determined that it is a public record. And at some point, we may be forced to release that information. But we won't do it without a fight.
Okay. Here's another question. What are my protection rights if someone enters my home? Can I stand my ground? What about my front or backyard?
Well, so that's always a question we get, and it's a tough one to answer because it's based on the circumstances at the time that it's occurring. It's based on the reasonableness. So yeah, first of all, you can stand your ground. You do not need to retreat from your property. You can protect yourself, protect your family, and use reasonable force to do that. Now, what reasonable is going to be determined by, a judge or a jury. And DA Curry, if you want to jump in on that, I know we've had some cases of, stand your ground here across the state, and if it's reasonable force, I can't speak for the DA's office, but I think that you would be fine. But determining what is reasonable is almost impossible without knowing the complete circumstances surrounding the incident.
Wendell's exactly right. I mean, it's in the specifics. of each incident. So yes, we're a stand your ground state. The use of force has to be reasonable under the totality of the circumstances. So, and you know, unless you have that totality of the circumstances in front of you, it's so hard to make a call one way or the other, whether it's you know, self-defense legally or not.
Yeah, and I mean, without knowing circumstances, I think it's safe to say that, you know, no piece of property is worth, you know, someone's life. But, you know, if it were my family member, that's a different story. So property versus safety of your loved ones or yourself, I think is a key factor in that. And something that you should consider. I mean, you know, if somebody's in your backyard and they're trying to steal something versus if somebody's in your backyard, they're trying to come inside and harm you. Absolutely, you could use reasonable force.
Okay, there was a question about what STARS is, but Leslie took care of that. Thank you, Leslie. There was also a comment related to fireworks that they did call on Halloween, and it sounds like dispatch wasn't interested in taking the address. So just a heads up for you there.
Okay.
And also some feedback kind of on the other side related to your response with respect to COVID enforcement and just concerns about you know, the spread of the virus in the community. So let's see.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want me to speak on that? Just, or is there a question or?
No, I think really it was not really a question. It was just you know, I can just read it to you. The Constitution does not grant individuals the right to do whatever they want, especially when it endangers the life of others. The issue with refusing to enforce COVID-19 mandates is that you're enabling individuals to act without regard for the virus and potentially spreading it to people who are at a higher risk of death if they contract the virus. While wrongful death may not be a crime, criminal negligence is. I hope you reconsider your position of COVID for the greater good of the county, especially since we are at the point where the infection and positivity rates here are some of the worst in the state.
Well, you know, I know that people have that opinion and those feelings, and I understand that, and I appreciate that. And I will not change my stance on it. I think that you need to know your risk, and you need to take appropriate steps, but you also need to know your rights. And if you're a person that's at risk, take appropriate steps to protect yourself. And I don't know what else to say about that. It's an opinion and a strong feeling that I have for the Constitution of this United States. And everyone has a right to their opinion, and I have one.
Thank you, Sheriff. That's actually all the questions we have at the moment. I know we've got at least about 5 more minutes, so we'll give folks a chance to answer those questions or ask those questions if anyone else has any. And then, you know I'm surprised that no one asked it during this chat during this meeting, because they certainly bring it up fairly frequently in online discussions, but related to cameras and or license plate readers at the entrances and exits to Plumas Lake. So if you just want to maybe touch on that real quick, or anything else that you think is higher priority to touch on in the last few minutes while we see if there's any more questions.
No, I think I was anticipating that question because it's come up before, and I would love to have, you know, closed circuit cameras, LPRs, license plate readers throughout the county. It's not feasible with our budget. We have had an assessment done of Plumas Lake to see what it would cost, how many cameras that it would take. And I'll let Joe speak to that a little bit more, but I'll just say that, you know, it's the cost associated with the installation, the purchase of those cameras is just more than the sheriff's budget will allow at this time. And, you know, in essence, it would cost more for the cameras just in Plumas Lake than, you know, for a full-time deputy position. And we continue. We're looking at different companies. Joe actually has some information where we had an assessment done of Plumas Lake, a feasibility study camera locations, numbers of cameras, and then, the ongoing costs. So I don't know if you have anything to add, but it would just, to purchase cameras based on the assessment, it would be over $120,000, just an initial startup. And well, Gary, I don't need to tell you, we don't have that in our budget.
Right. Okay. And then obviously there's the, potentially the additional time to monitor and utilize, those cameras
Well,
depending on how you're using them, right?
Yeah, if we're talking about license plate readers, I do believe that they're a great tool for investigation. I don't know that they're a deterrent. Now, closed circuit cameras, I believe, are very valuable. But yeah, then it's a dedicated resource to watching those cameras, and I just don't have the manpower for it. I think that CCTV is especially valuable as a deterrent. It can be used as a deterrent. License plate readers, I have a different opinion on. I believe that they're a valuable asset, but I don't know that it's a deterrent. I suppose they urge you not to tell the public where those license plate readers are. So, I'm not quite sure what the deterrent factor would be, other than, I guess, if we were catching thieves in the act, that would be one story, one thing. But the license plate readers takes photographs, puts them in a database, and it's not a live feed for us, so to speak. So, but we continue to study the feasibility, and we'll continue to look at the cutting edge technology, and we are moving forward with our technology in the county. And as we progress, and as the staffing allows, I would love to have license plate readers and TVs, but I would rather have more deputies first and foremost.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Couple more questions have come in. An individual wants to know if is an LP camera okay on their own property if they were facing the traffic ingress and egress?
A license plate reader, yeah, I believe so.
I don't know what access to any information that resulted would be available to that homeowner.
They wouldn't be able to.
Yeah,
The database, you wouldn't be able, you could have something, it's no different than having surveillance that reads a license plate that you captured to provide us that information. But you're not going to be able to have access to databases from private companies that is specifically for law enforcement. And the other part of that is you have to have permissions and licenses through the California Department of Justice. So, a home security camera is a lot cheaper for sure. And it will do just as much information if you're capturing something to provide us information.
yeah, I think the value in LPRs is that database, is having access to that database for investigative tool. And, that's what that, $120,000 would get us. No, I'm not saying that we'll never have LPRs, but it's actually probably pointless to have an LPR with no database.
Okay, yeah, the individual added that it was for evidence. So I'm guessing that they could hand over to you the various.
Well, we can take it if they want to purchase it and take any and all photos that we can get. And, there's a lot of value. We get a lot of good leads from surveillance cameras that people have on homes. And we've solved some pretty major crimes with those. And yeah, there's value in that for sure.
Okay. There was a question here. I know you've talked about it a couple times, but what's being done about the homeless, and are there any programs to help? And I can address that latter piece. I can say the Bi-County area has a tremendous amount of programs to try to assist our homeless individuals, and we do everything we can to encourage them to participate in those programs. And some are just not quite ready, willing, or able to do so. But for those that are, I think there's plenty of opportunities there, and we try to encourage them to take advantage of that. So a couple more questions. What does the dialogue between county resources and the needs of the community with law enforcement look like?
We're looking at it. doing things like this, this essentially is the essence of community policing. And being able to have that dialogue with the participants online here. And as the sheriff said, we're heading in the right direction to be able to dedicate more resources towards that. But in the meantime, these kind of town halls, community meetings that we have are a great resource to us. It shows us that Plumas Lake is interested in the community and the safety of the community, and want to be involved with us in protecting each other. So in short, this is that dialogue we're looking for.
Great. There's another question. Has there been any fire lately? I don't know if they mean house fire or what, but
We're gonna knock on wood and say, no, we haven't had any forest fires lately. I'm sure you're aware of the ones that we had the last few months, and here in Butte County, and we hold our collective breath every time a lightning storm comes through, and but we've been very fortunate and blessed.
here we go. Here's a question we know the answer to. Actually, we've known the answer to all the questions, but do you have a total accurate number of stolen vehicles in 2020 between the sheriff and the CHP? And for the Plumas Lake area, that number is 38. And then I know you guys have the number countywide as well, right?
Well, yeah, we have some numbers. Now, keep in mind, these aren't official numbers because CHP keeps those stats, but we're told that it's about 370 year to date with 38 in Plumas Lake, and that is very alarming. That we were having that discussion before the meeting started, and I've also had this discussion with our local CHP commander and some task force folks down in Sacramento. So, but I don't think it's anything that isn't happening in the rest of the state. It's a statewide problem, with auto thefts.
And then
Okay.
just to give you an idea from the prosecution end, I think we've had 130 cases this year for vehicle theft, representing 135 thefts. So it's about a third that we're able to, actually catch the bad guy and prove it and file a case.
Wow, that's actually great to hear that it's that many. I mean, I wish it was 100%, but that's more than maybe I would have guessed. So thanks for sharing that, Clint. Okay, I think that's it for questions, and we're definitely out of time. So I don't know if Sheriff, if you or anyone else there has anything else they want to share.
Hey,
Well-
Gary, I'm sorry, I was just going to clarify something real quick for you on the stats.
Oh, sure.
On our stats, the one you're sharing right now, when we talk about stolen vehicles here, because CHP primarily takes those stolen reports, but we do a lot of recoveries as well. So a lot of times when we're talking stolen vehicle reports, they're actually recoveries, unless that vehicle's taken in the commission of, say, a residential burglary. If it's taken from the garage, then we take those reports as a burglary and an auto theft. But I just wanted to mention real quick, because overall the year-to-date stats are down about 37%. But if you notice, the one category that jumped up quite a bit in 2020 was the residential burglaries in Plumas Lake. We went from 4 year-to-date last year to 13 this year. But I wanted to provide a little clarification on that for folks, because it's a little concerning when you look at it. But we had a lot of new construction kicking off again down there this last year. And we had a pretty large series going on in the new build homes, where the contractors were losing things like cabinetry, plumbing, and things like that out of their homes that they were using as storage at the building sites. So those, by and large, were those type of burglaries. They weren't necessarily home invasion type burglaries. And I just wanted to make that point. I thought it might help with the feelings towards that number anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
that's a great point, Leslie. Thank you. It's something that I failed to mention as well. But yeah, anytime a structure is entered, it's a burglary. And we did have a rash of those.
Okay.
Are there any questions, Gary?
One more question did come in. This might be more of an OES question, but I'll ask it in case you know the answer.
Okay.
Are the trains passing through Yuba County carrying any toxic chemicals? And is there a plan for a spill if so?
Well, so we definitely have plans for hazard mitigation, and one of those would be a spill. And I know we recently had some discussions about implementing emergency action plans, specifically with the tracks here in Marysville and also the tracks running through Plumas Lake. To my knowledge, we aren't having any chemicals of a volatile nature being transported. I know, from time to time that we do get notified of certain things that are transported through our county, but there's not something that happens on a regular basis. We do have emergency action plans in place for those types of things. We try to think of anything that could possibly go wrong and enact an emergency plan and have a plan in place. These guys work very closely with OES implementing those plans. I think Nick just sat in on a J-Long hazard mitigation plan, and if you have any more to add, feel free.
Yeah, we, maybe to ease the concern, that is part of our hazard mitigation plan is dealing with potential toxic spills, not only from trains, but any other source within the county, in addition to fires, floods, any type of unfortunate mass casualty event. So we do have those plans in place. We do get periodic notification, but it's few and far between. Hopefully that can ease some concerns.
Okay. Great, thank you. So I don't see any more outstanding questions at this time. So I want to thank you, Sheriff and Under Sheriff and Joe and Leslie for taking the time tonight and speaking with the community. I want to thank everyone that came and all the great questions. I think it was, and maybe we should do it again in 6 months or so. So anyway, really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Someday we'll be able to do another live town hall meeting. There you go.
Yeah, that'll be even better.
Thank you all very much. And Gary, thanks for setting this up. And, I just can't emphasize enough that I really feel that we're heading in a very good direction here in the county. And Gary has a lot to do with that. I know, he's very involved as a board member with multiple things in the county. And you have a tremendous staff of men and women here at the Sheriff's Department that show up day in and day out, and they do some very bad times, in the past 8 or 9 months. And kudos to those folks. Many of them live in your communities, and their kids, are being raised in these communities. So the vested interest in the Sheriff's Department is there, and our staff continues to do a great job. So thank you all very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Have a great night.